It was meant to be the most exciting time of my life, and my worst nightmare came true because I was in a place where I was utterly heartbroken. Like, I've never felt that level of heartbreak before. I wouldn't speak to anybody the way I used to speak to myself. You're going to find out who you really are and what you're really made of.
You said you thought he was your forever.
Yeah.
But it turned out he was a catalyst for your awakening.
Just like from that moment, something in my mind just twigged, and I thought, what makes people so different? What makes it the fact that I'm here serving tea and coffee? And I was just so intrigued by what does it take to live a big, expansive life.
Rebecca Christian rebuilt her life in just 18 months. Before she was the founder of Limitless Academy, before she was guiding women to rewire their unconscious mind, her own life moves through extreme heartbreak, trauma, anxious attachment, and most importantly, the extraordinary rebuilding of self-love and self-trust. She immersed herself in mindset work, timeline therapy, and identity installation, a complete set of tools she now uses to help women remove old limitations, break repeating patterns, and become the woman capable of holding her vision limitlessly. Her story is especially meaningful at the beginning of a new year because it reminds us that we can truly become a new version of ourselves, not through vision, but through deep inner work.
I'm all in. This is the vision. Building a business isn't easy because you have to become somebody you've never been before. I hadn't come this far to only come this far. I didn't know millionaires. I didn't know billionaires. They wasn't in my circle. This is why I always say work harder on yourself than you do anything else, because what happened along the way is I started to attract those people that were operating at a higher frequency because I was able to hold the energy of it. Pain is inevitable, but suffering is a choice. I was not the girl. I was so far removed from the girl that my ex met. And I just shot off and I'd gone this way. And I mean, call it stubbornness, but I continued on with it because for me, living an average life was scarier than basically losing what I had. It's uncomfortable. You know, and I had one of my clients say, have I changed that quick? Have I changed that much? And I said, it's not that you've changed. You've just become more of who you truly are.
If that man in the first class of the flight, he's here, he's saying to you, right, you should find your answer. Do you think you found your answer?
I think I found the way.
Hi, my beautiful Penthouse community and all fearless women. I hope you all had a wonderful start to the new year. This is the year of the fire horse, a year of courage, movement, and a big expansion. So my wish for every one of you this year is that you walk into your higher destiny fearlessly and limitlessly. To all our new friends, I'm Serena Wang, the founder and host of Women in the Penthouse. We are a podcast and a community created to empower women to live a fearless, limitless, and ageless life. A life of courage, purpose, and reinvention. Since we launched last year, we've been receiving heartfelt messages from women all around the world. And I truly couldn't be more grateful or more excited to continue this beautiful journey with you. If you haven't subscribed to our channel, make sure you hit the subscribe. Follow us on Instagram and TikTok. And feel free to send us a message if you have any questions or any ideas about living a fearless, limitless, and ageless life. Now let's begin today's conversation. So Rebecca, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having
me.
me.
Very excited for this conversation. And it's so good to see you in person. I love your energy and aura, so I'm really excited about this conversation here, finally, on the show.
Thank you for having me. Honestly, it's an absolute pleasure.
Yeah, and I know you have a deeply inspiring journey. A lot of things can empower, can inspire our audience. So how is the new year so far?
Do you know, I'm really enjoying this new year. It's the first year I can honestly say that I feel a level of inner peace.
Oh.
You know, and it's something I've never really experienced before. And I know we'll probably get onto that, you know, throughout, you know, my life story, if you will, but it's going really well.
Inner peace,
Inner peace.
the keyword for the beginning.
Yeah.
And if there's one thing, we have 3 keywords: fearless, limitless, ageless. Obviously, we will dive into all the details later. But if there's one thing, fearless, you want to achieve this year, what is that?
Oh, that is a very good question. For me, it's breaking more glass ceilings than I've ever broken before. And something I always do is I always find my edge and then I walk that a little bit further. So in terms of my goals, I mean, I do have big audacious goals, for life and business. And it's funny because I actually said this not that long ago, but I don't actually share publicly my bigger goals anymore. I kind of move in silence. But I think if I was to say anything, this year is going to be the year that every single glass ceiling that I've had about myself or on myself, I am literally breaking every one.
Love it. I know your business called the Limitless Academy.
Yeah.
That's why we're so aligned.
Yeah. Well, when I saw obviously the branding of your podcast and the words, I was like, oh my God, Limitless, of course.
18 months ago, you are a completely different person. You've been going through a lot. When I check your profile, I see all the beautiful photos, videos, and energy, the light you're bringing to the world today. I really cannot believe the transformation just happened in 18 months. I think it's very especially meaningful for our audience because especially this moment is the beginning of the new year. Everyone wants to be, reinvent themselves for truly walking to their higher destiny in this year. So I think your story gave us, if I may say a word, possibility in just 18 months. So maybe we can start from there, taking our audience back to 18 months ago. I think the summer of 2024. So what happened and what was the version of Rebecca at that time versus the woman who is sitting here today?
It was meant to be the most exciting time of my life and my worst nightmare came true. So it was in the summer of 24. I'd been building my business for 2 years now and I decided to take a leap of faith and leave the corporate world behind and just, be a girl who went after her dreams, wanted to change the lives of other people, right? I think going on your own transformational journey, I just had this real deep purpose and I guess this fire in me that's what I wanted to do. And at the time I was living in a place called Wokingham in Berkshire. So I moved from Manchester to London many years ago. And I was living with my ex-partner at the time. We had a house together, we had a mortgage. And 3 weeks before I was due to leave my corporate job, he basically walked out and decided we were no more. And I think when this moment happened, it was like every part of safety and security that I knew, my job, my corporate salary income, right, my steady income, the guy who I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, it was like it just went overnight. And I remember sat there and I thought, well, this isn't great. This isn't how I expected it, right? I think when you're working on your vision and you're taking those bold moves every day, you don't expect that to happen, right? Because in your head, you're like, but I'm doing the thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm moving towards my goals. I'm, becoming more enlightened, if you will. Like I'm a good person. And all of a sudden, my whole world of how I knew it just completely and utterly, and I say felt like it crumbled because it wasn't crumbling, but it felt like it was crumbling. And I remember sat there and I thought, right, you're going to find out who you really are and what you're really made of. And I think sometimes when you are pushed to your limits, you become your limitless self. Do you want me to go a little bit into the journey of?
Yeah, of course. Because I know, actually, let us talk about the decision resigning from the corporate, right? You actually have, you were the cabin crew like previously for British Airline. And you did work hard to have a very stable, in the later years, like career with the company, right? It's actually very established, stable job. So then you make the decision. Like you said, it's a leap of faith.
Yeah.
leaving the company. So is that the calling of the entrepreneurship? Like I want to build a business.
I never thought in my entire life that I would leave a corporate job and build a business, and let alone build a brand. I just did not ever think that was possible for me. When I went on my own journey in terms of my health, I went and hired a fitness coach, and I went on a bit of an ascetic journey. So I was like shedding a bit of weight, I was building muscle, and I absolutely fell in love with health and fitness. So much that I became a health coach first. So that was my first business. I was health coaching, and I was doing a bit of PTing. And I just thought, wow, I feel incredible. Like I can help other people with this, you know? And then I decided that mindset was something that was so strong, if you will, like this pull towards it, because I started to go down the road of understanding success. And I was like, what makes people so successful? And this is the kind of journey that I went on. And I think I just had this pull that there was more out there. You know, I'll never forget when I was cabin crew. I mean, I was cabin crew for 4.5 years. This was, well, gosh, I was 25 at the time. I'm 39 now, so it was many years ago. And I always remember when we used to fly around the world, and LA was one of our most popular routes. And I always used to love working in first class. It was just my cabin. I just loved it. I loved the level of service. I loved the quality, the luxury, just everything about it. And I always remember this gentleman sat there, and he was in 1A. And we developed quite a good relationship, you know, during the flight. And I remember saying to him, what does it take to sit in that chair? And he just looked at me, and I had my name badge on at the time, and he said, Rebecca, that is a question that you're going to have to find the answer for. And it just, like, from that moment, something in my mind just twigged, and I thought, what makes people so different? Like, what makes it the fact that I'm here serving tea and coffee in a beautiful cabin? Not that there's anything wrong with that, right? I had the best experience, and I met the most amazing people doing that job. But I thought, what is it? What makes us so different? And I guess that kind of took me on the path of curiosity, right? And I always say, like, a curious mind leads to a very successful life. And I guess I always had something in me. I always had 2 jobs. I always had my career. I worked for the NHS previously to the airline that I worked for. But I always had jobs on the side, you know, a bit of a side hustle, because I was just so intrigued by what does it take to live a big, expansive life? Because I didn't come from that background, right? I came from a very, you know, low middle class family. And I just thought, I'm gonna find out. And I guess it was just this pull, and I guess that's what's brought me to where I am today.
That's a beautiful question. Yeah. It's very important, right? Like, what makes, can you repeat that question? Like, what makes people so different? Yeah.
When I really started to, I guess, I asked myself the question, because I was like, why am I not sat in that chair? You know, that was one of the first questions. It kind of got me thinking, what is success? You know, what is it? What makes people so different? Because at the end of the day, we're all made up of the same stuff. And I don't know if you know about Bob Proctor. He's one of my absolute legends in this industry. Yeah, God rest his soul now. But and I remember him always saying, like, we're all made of the same stuff. We're all made of matter, right? The only difference is the mind.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow, like give me more on this.
It's like a nudge from that question, like a nudge from the universe, right?
Yeah.
Actually, everybody should think about that. It's the big question, like, what is special for me?
Yeah.
I'm here, right? So this could be one of the reasons you resigned from the BA, right, and start your own business.
Yeah.
But the story, like you mentioned, it was really out of your expectation. It was actually very hard. Your partner, you thought, you said something beautiful. You said you thought he was your forever.
Yeah.
But it turned out he was a catalyst for your awakening.
Yeah.
I think that's beautiful.
Do you know, that line is from my book that I'm writing at the moment. I'm actually writing a book, and that was the line, and I was like, I thought he was going to be my forever, but he was the catalyst.
So what was the deepest fear at that moment?
When he left.
That moment, 18 months ago.
I found out that I I discovered, should I say, that I had a very anxious attachment style. And I didn't know this about myself, which is really interesting, considering all of the work that I do on myself, right? And I always say I might be a mindset consultant and a timeline therapist, but you can't see yourself in the picture when you're in the frame, right? And that's why doing this work with somebody else is just so important. You can't see your blind spots. And I remember thinking, like, what is this anxious attachment? Like, I started to dive into it a little bit more.
What was the symptom?
Oh, God, it was like, I didn't want to be left on my own. You know, and that was one of the things. It was being left. It was abandonment. And I felt abandoned. Anxious attachment, you know, things like I felt like I was always trying to prove my worth. And I wanted him to look at me in a way that I looked at him. And I think sometimes I, without even realising energetically, I attracted, because I think, you know, he did admit this at one point, he was very much of an avoidant. So you've got an attachment, an avoidant, and it's just a...
Oh, that's classic.
It's just a firework, right? It's just
that.
a bang of explosion. And I just thought, okay, so the fear for me was, can I do this? Like, I hadn't come this far to only come this far. You know, I've been working relentless building my business. And, you know, when you first start out in business, you don't know who you need to become, right? You don't know what you need to do. You've got skills that you need to learn. And I went into it very naively. And I think I was sold of, you know, a bit of the online dream that you see, and, you know, you can scale to this in 0 to 6 months or whatever it might be. And I did go into it naively. I've had, you know, no like business experience. None of my family were entrepreneurs, if you will. So I'd never been around that level of thinking, right? Because you have to think differently for you to live the life that you want to truly live in terms of building your career and your business and, you know, your brand. You have to think differently. And I didn't know how to think differently back then. So I guess I felt alone, right? I felt quite lonely because even though I had an amazing, you know, circle around me, like my friends and my family at the time, they weren't in business. They didn't get it, you know. And I think when you leave a secure corporate job, I mean, I'm going to be completely transparent on this podcast because it's all about who I am and I openly share my story.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I only had X amount of savings, right, after I left corporate to see me through. And in my head, I was like, my focus and energy, it needed to be on the business. It needed to be on learning and growing and evolving. And in fact, I was in a place where I was utterly heartbroken. Like, I've never felt that level of heartbreak before. And I've been married and divorced, right? There was just something within that relationship that just brought up so many unhealed wounds that I didn't even realise I had.
What was like a rock bottom moment? Did you have a moment like, oh, I cannot do this?
Oh, there were many. There were many. And I'll never forget, it must have been a week after he walked out. And, you know, I haven't got a bad thing to say about the guy. I really haven't. I mean, could he have dealt with things differently? I'm sure, right? We all can, me included. I'm not saying I'm perfect in any which way. But I'll never forget when he walked out and he sent me a text message. So this wasn't even done in person. It was done via a text message, and off he went with his life, if you will. And where we lived, there used to be this beautiful like park area. And I went in the park. Walking was my thing. It literally got me through that time. Being out in nature, listening to a podcast, just searching for words of hope, right? To help me through that time. And I remember sat on this bench, and it was beautiful where I was. I used to always sit and watch the sunset. And I used to always, you know, at the time I didn't believe in God, right? I used to say and refer to it as the universe. And I used to find myself, you know, praying to a God I never believed in before, because you're searching for something to help you through that time. And I sat on this bench and I watched the sunset, and I thought, I can't do this. The pain is too much. It was like it just consumed my whole way of being, my whole way of thinking. And I thought, how the hell am I going to earn a salary from my business that I've tried to build. I was still in the early stages and the foundations, and
you
they
only
were
have 4
wobbly.
months saving, you said that.
Yeah, and it was a really scary place to be, and it was the biggest risk that I have ever taken on myself, because I spent a hell of a lot of my own savings on mentorship, on business, on my qualifications. I'm all in. This is the vision, and I kept getting these nudges of, like, you're meant to do this, Beck. Like, this is your line of work. You haven't gone through all of this past trauma to not be able to help other people through it.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I say this all of the time to my own clients, but if you want to create impact in the world, be prepared to be impacted. And I'll never forget, and you'll relate to this, I came across David, I can never pronounce his surname, David Graham's podcast.
David Guillaume.
There we go. Incredible guy.
He is brilliant. Yeah.
Absolutely incredible guy. I would absolutely love to meet him in person. One day you might be on his podcast, you never know. And I always remember listening to one of his episodes, and he said, never pray for the problem to go away, but pray for the strength to get you through it.
Yes. I think I get so much learning growth from his teaching, I would say, last year. He was literally, I think I used the word exploded last year. And it's so beautiful. I was actually at his seminar in London. So it's truly, truly very uplifting, a lot of things. I think one of the key takeaway from his teaching is sit with the pain. Like you just mentioned, there was so much pain at that time, right?
Yeah.
So we have to, I think most of people, we just so used to escape from it, right? That's why a lot of escapism, like everything is try to switch us, distract us, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is, when you sit with the pain, that's how you grow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You have to go straight through it.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And I think for so long, and like, especially with my past and, my upbringing and the experiences that I experienced back then, and the trauma that I went through and all of these things.
Yeah, because I know you had a quite also challenging, like a teenager time, and always had this self-trust issue. So I'm curious, from that kind of rock bottom moment, you said, oh, I cannot do this. What was the changing moment? Like that, I would say, because we talk about fearless, right? What was that maybe one fearless step which has changed your life?
In the last 18 months.
Yes.
The one thing, I guess, that really changed for me, I literally woke up one day and I was tired of my own internal noise. The self-talk of, you're not good enough. You're not going to be able to do this. You're going to have to go back and get a corporate job. Who do you think you are to leave and think you can do this? And I'd had enough of telling myself this story. And I am so deep in the mindset work. It's what I do, right? It's my whole brand and business. It's all about rewriting your story, rewiring your brain, creating a life of your wildest dreams. And I was like, you've got to lead the way, Beck. You can't. You have to be an embodiment of the work that you do. So this is your lesson to actually prove to yourself that, one, you can trust yourself, but two, you actually understand the material that you're teaching, right? Because there's a knowing doing gap. You can know all of the information, but what are you doing and who are you being? And it was this one day, and I just woke up and I thought, enough. Like, I had to close off my 5 senses, what I could see, hear, smell, taste and touch. And that included living in the house that I had with my partner. And every day, even though it was a beautiful house and I was super, super grateful that I had a roof over my head and I was safe to a degree, I had to switch off my 5 senses and be like, this is not going to be your ever after, right? Suck it up, buttercup. You're going to have to move through this now. You're going to have to feel every single feeling that comes your way, because if you truly believe in the work that you believe in and the work that you teach to help other people, then prove it to yourself. And I think that's where my self-trust of really, truly trusting myself began.
How do you build that? If some woman sitting here asks you like, oh, I was in this heartbreaking like breakup and also like yourself at that time, I was building a business but it's hopeless. What is one thing Or what do you think the most important thing she should start fearlessly?
I think if you're going to have any affirmation or any words of wisdom, these were mine. I love him, but I love me more. And I got that from Sex and the City, right?
Of course.
And it's
I just want to say that's the most famous thing. I love Samantha Jones. That's really like my Bible, Sex and the City.
Yeah.
I literally can quote a lot of the beautiful things. And yeah, I love
it was that. And I think
I love you, but I love me more.
Yeah, because you have to love yourself on the deepest level. And I think coming from someone who had zero self-worth, okay, didn't like her appearance. I had the worst body dysmorphia. I used to really struggle with binge eating. Anything about my appearance. My negative self-talk was horrendous. Like, I wouldn't speak to anybody the way I used to speak to myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's these moments that make you become strong and trust yourself. I think it's micro moments that you do on a daily basis. And I think it's, you're going to fall down 7 times, but you sure as hell get back up at 8 and you keep moving forward.
From that experience, from that Rebecca to now, you can give us 3 things most important we can do if we want to be the new self this year.
Work harder on yourself than you do on your job or your business. That was one from Jim Rohn. At the end of the day, your business is an expansion of who you are. So if you work harder on yourself and you really start to understand yourself, because I think what can happen, we go through life and we only ever seem to know, this is if you don't do any of the, the deconditioning work, if you do, but you only know a conditioned version of yourself. You don't know who you truly are. And I think when you learn to strip back all of the limiting beliefs, right? All of the stories, all of the, the identity that you hold about yourself. Like when I found out, like I say, I discovered this anxious attachment style, I was very aware of how I was like saying that to myself, in the sense of I'm not somebody who has anxious attachment style. I'm not identifying with that. I am somebody who experiences that. Because you get to create the identity whatever you want, right? You can be, do, have anything you want. And I truly believe that, because, and this is why I take my audience along the way and the journey, because I show you in real time. I didn't want to be somebody that, tells you when you're at the top and, you look back and it's like, oh, this is my journey. And, they say don't share from the wound, only share from the scar. And I completely get that in terms of wisdom and lessons. But I'll never forget the day when I did quit my job. My partner walked out and I thought, who the hell am I now? Right? I didn't have my corporate job. My friends at the time were slowly dwindling away because, when you go to different frequencies, people tend to drop off. And I was like, who am I? Like, I need to figure out this identity thing.
I love what you said. You lived a transformation. So that's why you can share, like you are walking your clients really with your own experience.
Of course.
Right?
And I always say I like to teach from experience, not just from textbook. I'm all about science. I love the mind, I love the brain, I love everything about it. But for me, it's lived personal experience, because I always, I do this all of the time. I'll look back, I'll reverse engineer and I say, how did I get from here to here? Because you can't see yourself, like I said in the picture, when you're in the frame, when you are in the thick of it, you can't see the wood for the trees. So I guess going back to your question, one of the most important things is you've got to be around the right people. Your environment is, my goodness, your biggest catalyst. And that includes, I don't just mean having a nice home and things like that. I'm talking about the quality of people you have in your life. And when I started on this journey, I remember, like I said, I took my audience on, I was on Instagram quite a lot back then, but I took my audience along the journey with me. And I remember showing up and being completely transparent and said, you all know I've just left my corporate job, because again, I was sharing the story of, you get to follow your passion and your dreams. It's not easy, right? By all means, it's been one of the most challenging journeys of my life, because you have to become somebody that you've never been before, right? But I took them on the journey with me, and I was like, I want to show you, I don't know how this is going to end in a way. Like, I've got a vision in my mind and I'm going to show you how to do it. And you're going to watch me do it. And you're going to watch me take the steps. You're going to watch me show up when it hurts, you know, because I want to show you how powerful the mind is. And sometimes, you know, and I say this to my clients, but if you don't believe in yourself and you don't have that level of belief, then borrow mine, right? Because I've built the belief within myself now. It's taken me years to get to where I am, but that's because I didn't have the knowledge or the consciousness that I'm operating from today. So that's when I always say to my clients, I can help you fast track because I can see your blind spots, you know? And so I think, again, going back, I digress a little, but having those fundamental, strong, grounded people by your side, you will just elevate.
Intentionally select, I think. We will use the word frequency and vibration, right?
Yeah.
Like you said, when we grow our consciousness, naturally we are kind of losing some people. Yeah, it's just naturally. But I think,
and it's hard.
It's hard, yes.
It's the hard. You know, I've got a lot of clients in one-to-one at the moment that we're currently working through with this because it's a challenge. It's uncomfortable. You know, and I had one of my clients say, have I changed that quick? Have I changed that much? And I said, it's not that you've changed. You've just become more of who you truly are.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when you're connected to your purpose and you're living a life on purpose, to me, that is the highest level of vibration you can be operating from.
Yeah, it's actually peeling off your layers, right?
Yeah.
It's like more and more your true self and your soul are shining out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we talk about fearless. Well, I always ask this question to the guests. So I might ask you a little bit differently. So what is the definition of being fearless before you're going through maybe 18 months ago and after you're going through all the transformation, your journey? What's the difference? What do we see being fearless?
I love this question because I think it relates very much to being limitless as well, right? Yes. I think it's very much intertwined. And I think being fearless, I think it's having a delusional vision for your life. I think it's allowing yourself, like I said, to find your edge and just walk that little bit further, right? You don't want to stretch the nervous system too much, right? You want to do this in incremental steps. And it's just having this inner knowing. And like David, going back to David's podcast and how he articulates his message, but operating from a place of certainty over logic, right? And I think sometimes you've got to get out of your head. You've got to get out of what you can physically see. And like I said, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand. So I think for me, being fearless is allowing yourself to dream, right? Allowing yourself to think of the most impossible thing that you could ever imagine and make it possible.
I love what you said. Like, I know David mentioned a lot about the delusional.
Yeah.
Is that like a good leader should be first delusional, confident, and certainty, right? Yeah. But delusional, it's really, it's interesting. Because sometimes, like you said, people will say you're a crazy dreamer. Like myself, I came here to study art. I shared my story a lot. Like it's literally like a teenager dream. So I'm always like a big dreamer. When I used to work with the corporate, naturally your environment will holding you back, right? So it is really hard to hold that certainty. Yeah. But again, that certainty is so important because when you have that strong feeling, I literally asked this question to ChatGPT. I said, what is the difference between certainty compared to faith and hope? And it turned out that this is the answer from ChatGPT. Certainty is the strongest. Like you just had a strong feeling, everything is good. Yeah. And we are supported. And like David said, like everything is a gift.
For you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a gift. Yeah. It's for us to grow, for us to transform.
I think everything happens for you. if you choose to have that perception, everything's perception, and I could go back to my story with my ex and say, he walked out of the door and he never came back one time. But in my mind, he left again and again and again. And this is when the pain was getting stronger and stronger, because the mind's got a funny way, hasn't it, of going over the same old thing again. And it was just this moment where I was causing, and I do believe, pain is inevitable, right? I do think we have to go through pain. It's a part of life, but suffering is a choice, and I think if you can really help yourself and learn how to process pain rather than allow to suffer, that's when you can really transform your life.
I think back to we just mentioned, the key is see pain as a gift.
Yeah. And it is, and that's not always easy because life is going to life. And when you study parts of the brain, we're always very much, I guess in a way, programmed to focus more on the pain, right, than the good.
Yeah.
And it always feels more intense than the good does. It's just the way we're programmed. And I think you can really start to hack and this is what I do every day. I hack my brain every day. I'm delusional every day.
How do we do that?
to
be more delusional.
You have to decide, right? I say this all the time, like everyone's looking for the quick, show me the process. I can give you the framework that I use. I can give you the model and everything else. All of that's made up, right? You are so connected. If you truly allow yourself, like we was talking about, to connect to your body, get out of your head and into your body, and you connect with whatever higher power it is out there, because there's definitely something, and this is when beliefs, everyone believes in different things. When you truly are connected, you have this knowing, like going back to a knowing and a certainty, you're always taken care of. So you don't need to worry. And the problem is sometimes we end up worrying about worrying, because we think, well, if I'm worrying about worrying, then I'm not going to attract the things I want because my vibration's going to dip. And I'm like, you are here to live a human experience. And I'm going to show you how to live your most limitless potential, like live up to your most limitless potential.
And I think the more you're relaxed, like in the being mode. Just that day I was talking about this with one of very spiritual lady, a friend. It's all about in your being mode. Be happy.
Yeah.
Be relaxed and have the certainty we are on the right track. Hack the mind.
Hack the mind. I think being relaxed is very, very important in this whole journey of literally manifesting the life that you want to live. I came from a background of, like I said, I really suffered with anxiety. And I say the word suffer because I identified with somebody who had anxiety.
Yeah.
When in fact I should have just reframed it and said I experience anxious thoughts, right? Because when you make it part of who you are, this is why I love specializing in identity shifting, because we create our own identity based on who we believe that we are, not who we truly are. And if you look at life as one big experience, you experience different emotions, different feelings, all of these things. It's like literally changing how you see yourself. Working on your self-image is the most powerful thing that you can ever do.
I think that's it's a little related to the limited belief, right? Like the identity we created, it's basically we absorbed from the environment, like since we were 7, 14. Yeah.
My journey from, I guess, being born and, my mum is my absolute best friend and I absolutely adore her. My dad broke up when I was like 2-3 years old, and my mum met my stepdad, who's still in my life today. And, that was quite, when I was around, going back to teenage years, around 14, 15, 16, that was really challenging for our family at the time. And, I have openly shared this, but my stepdad took to alcohol. So I grew up around alcoholism. Okay, so being from the age of like 14 till I was 25 when I decided to move to London, right, to be cabin crew.
But you said something, you want to escape from Manchester. What exactly you want to escape? You wanted to escape at the time?
think looking back, when I applied for cabin crew in London, and bearing in mind I was from Manchester, so it was quite a distance away from family. I really wish, when people ask me the question, why are you going to be cabin crew? I really wish my answer was because I want to explore and travel the world. I want to see the culture. I want to, meet new people. And it was so far removed from the actual truth. It was the fact that I did want to escape quite a toxic life. And, I was in a relationship at the time of 8 years, and that wasn't great. That wasn't great. That was quite a toxic relationship in the sense of, somebody in the wrong crowd, and I'm just going to leave that one there. But I wanted to escape. I wanted to escape a life, because I remember going for this walk one day, and I was with my mum at the time, and we took the dog and we went onto this place. It's called Wern Flow. It's in Manchester. And I went to the top of the hill, and you could just see the whole of Manchester and beyond. And I remember looking, and I thought, there's got to be more to life than this. Like, this can't be it. It can't be. I watched Sex in the City. I want to go to New York. I wanted that life. I wanted the dream life. And my reality kept showing me that it doesn't exist. It's make-believe, right? It doesn't exist. And I never gave up. I never gave up on hope, even if I've been married and divorced to, he was quite a narcissistic person at the time. And even with my ex-leave, I thought I never give up hope on living a happy, healthy, wealthy life. I never gave up on that, because I thought, if you don't have hope, what do you have?
Because that picture is in your mind, always in your mind.
In your mind. And if you can hold it in your mind, you can, if you can see it in your mind, you can hold it in your hand.
But that's the difference. I think most people think it's delusional, right? It's like illusion, maybe something we can never achieved.
I think a lot of the way people perceive the world today, and the way they operate and the way they move, everything is always dramatized. Everything is always this is stressful and I've got to do this. And, people say it, I've got to go to a job I don't want to go to. Well, you don't have to do anything. It's a choice. I'm not saying you quit your job tomorrow and you can go and, if you have a passion and a vision, like, myself with my business, it's taken me 4 years to get to the place I am today.
But with someone like you, like me, we hold this vision steadily in our mind and work towards it.
Yeah.
What do you think is the most important in this process? Like you said, from A to B. Why 90% of the people may fail or never really started that journey, But what is the most important?
I think it's choosing to see the world through your eyes and not see the world through somebody else's eyes.
Yes.
Because everyone's got a different map of the world, right? Everyone's got a different view of the world. And I think a lot of the time, this is why putting yourself in rooms with people who are expanders, who are delusional, who are going somewhere, right? They're very certain on where they're going and the vision. You want to be close to them people. You want to be in close proximity, because the worst thing you can do is share your crazy delusional vision with somebody that is operating at a low level of consciousness. And that is not undermining anybody. We're all different. We're all on our soul's path, in my opinion. Not everybody is designed or meant to be entrepreneurs, right? It's not the way of the world, but who you surround yourself with dictates your success and your future. And I know this to be true because I have come from nothing, and I have intentionally created a life. And, at the time, I didn't know millionaires. I didn't know billionaires. I didn't know people that were successful and wealthy and lived that lifestyle. I didn't know them. They wasn't in my circle. This is why I always say work harder on yourself than you do anything else, because what happened along the way is I started to attract those people that were operating at a higher frequency because I was able to hold the energy of it. And that is my biggest, I guess, lesson that I have learned along the way.
Yeah, it's like all happened here.
Yeah.
when we do our work, raise our own frequency, everything just coming to us.
It naturally does, and it becomes effortless. And I don't want to sit here and say and make it sound like it's easy, because it's not. Building a business isn't easy because you have to become somebody you've never been before. It's not the actual stuff you have to do in business, right? We can learn skills. We're human beings, we learn. You can learn sales and marketing and, communication and social media and videography. Like, you can learn all of that. The hardest thing that you're going to ever have to do is change your own paradigm, which is a multitude of habits that are stored in your unconscious mind.
And I love you mentioned that it's really, really not easy.
No, it's not. It's the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
A lot of commitment.
Yeah.
Discipline.
That's my word of the year. It's not glorious, right? And it's not, everyone's like, oh, is Limitless your word of the year? And I said, no, that was last year, and I've built my Limitless brand. But this year is discipline. It's about, for me, and it's refining on what I'm doing, because what got me here isn't going to get me there. So I have to start thinking and doing things differently and being different, right? I need to start asking better questions. How do I do that? Well, I start putting myself in rooms with people who are a few steps ahead of me. I observe their body language. I observe their behaviour. Like my partner that I've met today, he's an absolute incredible man. I've never met a man like him before. His level of awareness, his level of spirituality, his level of emotional intelligence. He's an incredible man, and I have the privilege of living with him.
So how did you attract him? I guess all our audience want to know that. Yeah.
Can I share something a little personal with you?
Of course, everything.
I remember it was a Saturday evening, and it was the first Saturday that I was in my house where I used to live with my ex on my own when he'd left. And I was listening to The Greatest Showman, right? Love The Greatest Showman soundtrack. And there was one particular track on there, and I was listening to it. And I don't know what this was. And this is when I sound crazy as hell, but you'll get this because you're the same energy as me. But I felt like I had this warm hug, this feeling of, you're going to be fine. You're going to be fine. I kind of had an idea of what I was going to go through, because I'd been married and divorced. I've, been through relationships and heartbreak and everything else. This felt very different. But I just knew I was going to be okay. And I started to write, and I'm all about, my whole brand is based on rewrite your story, right? And I physically picked up that pen. Don't have to be any more complicated than this. I picked up that pen, and I got my favourite journal, because the pen and the journal matter, right? It's got to be of quality. It's got to feel good in your hand, and obviously when you're writing. And I started to write the life that I was going to be living, and very soon. Because for me, every single day is precious. Every day, right? Whether you're having a bad day, whether you're having a good day, I am grateful I'm alive for another day, right? Because there's somebody that's taken their last breath, and I'm grateful, and I'm like, right, I'm gonna see how powerful this mind is. Let's just play with it, have fun with it. Stop being so serious. Yeah, life's not great right now. Your whole world feels like it's crumbled, but you know what? Rebuild it. And I remember writing, and I thought, this is the kind of life that I want to live. And looking back at my actual journals, it was just this level of peace that I wanted to feel. And this is the thing, we're never really chasing outcomes. We're never chasing, even though we think we are, the success, the opportunities. We're chasing a feeling, because it's what the opportunity, what the business, what the money, what that brings to you, in the sense of, how does it make you feel?
Yeah.
And every time I was writing, I couldn't see it at the time. It's only, again, you can't connect the dots looking forward, but only looking back. And I was searching for a level of inner peace. And I remember writing, thinking, I want to spend my days where I wake up in the morning and I'm calm. My mind is calm. I'm not worrying. I'm not worrying about finances. I'm not worrying about, where's my next client going to come from. I'm just in a place of inner peace and knowing that no matter what comes my way, I trust myself and I'm going to be just fine. And my days would include waking up in the morning on my terms, right, on my clock, being able to spend half an hour on my morning routine without having to rush out of the door to go to a corporate job, go to the spa, write my book from the spa, go on different podcasts, being here today, like opportunities like this, and being with a man that was my absolute best friend. like a true friend, you know, not just a partner, not just a husband, not just a boyfriend, but an absolute anchor in my life. Because in all honesty, I'd never experienced it. I've never experienced a man that is by my side through thick and thin, no matter how hard it got, from a place of unconditional love.
But you had a lot of traumatic experience from previous relationship.
Yeah.
So how did you manage this one? And definitely there are a lot of like self-doubt, inner talk. This inner talk's coming back, right?
In the past, yeah. And this is when I really want to help women, especially when they're feeling in a place where they're never going to attract the man of the dreams, because it doesn't exist. And every date they go on and it's just not working. And when I met Adam, it was very quick. I met him in 24 hours of being in an online app. I didn't want to go online, being completely honest. I met my ex-husband online. I met my ex online. And I thought, I can't be doing with that. I was listening to a podcast by Jay Shetty, and he was talking about the 4 levels of, it was like the 4 levels of understanding when it comes down to a relationship, and how you connect with people on a physical, emotional, spiritual, and mental level. And I was kind of thinking, well, with my ex, I probably just connected with him on a physical level, because I do think we were on different paths. And I know communication was always a bit of a juggle for us. It was always a struggle. And I'd done my NLP and I'd done all of these things. I'm thinking, what is wrong with me? Like, why can't I communicate with this guy properly? But obviously it takes 2, right? And I remember thinking, okay, so if I was to connect with my next partner, what are my core values? Like, what means the most to me? And I thought, I want to connect with someone on a spiritual level, on an emotional level. I want to have, like, I'm a very deep person, and I like depth in conversations like this one today, right? I thrive on that. So those were all of my highest qualities. Yeah. And I was driving home. I've been at an ice hockey game, supporting one of my friends. He's got a business designing ice hockey kits. And I came home and I was listening to Jay Shetty podcast, and I was this one particular episode, and I thought, I know my guy is out there. And again, it was like this overwhelming feeling of there was no maybe, because I wasn't using my logical brain.
Certainty.
It's not like a belief, it was a knowing, right? Massive difference. It was a knowing. And I don't know what came over me, call it intuition, but I signed up to Hinge, right? I went on Hinge. I was on there for 24 hours and I thought, this is not for me. I thought, I am online a lot with my business. The last thing I want to be doing. And again, logical brain kicks in. I ain't got time for it. I don't want to be doing this. I went on my messages and I must have had over 80 messages, because I think when you're new on there, your profile must get pushed out as like, you know, you're new and yeah. And I thought, oh my God. And I'm scrolling through and I'm thinking, I genuinely haven't got time. My focus and energy is on business. Like, I haven't got time for this. And it was just this low level conversation. And I thought, there was one message that stood out to me. On my profile, I had something where it said, my last journal prompt was writing about my crazy delusional business goal, because I believe being more delusional, the bigger the success, or something along them lines. And this one message came back and it said, you might want to check out a quote by, and I can't remember the name of it now, of this woman. And the name of the quote, it might be up your street. It wasn't, hi Beck, how are you? You know, none of that. It was just very direct and to the point. And I thought, who is this guy? You know, and I went online and I searched this quote and I thought, that's a really deep quote. That's a bit of me. That is definitely a bit of me. And we started chatting, and he was the only one out of all of these other people that I was really drawn to. Of course, his pictures looked, you know, he was in his sports kit, he was strong, I thought, oh, he's all right. But there was something deeper, and we connected on such a deep level so soon. And call me delusional here, right? I remember speaking to one of my girlfriends and I said, something's going to happen with this guy. She's like, Beck, you've only just met him. You've only just come out of this relationship. I went, I know, but I just know it is. And then obviously my logical mind kicked in and I was like, I'm not ready, right? And being completely honest, my heart was with my ex.
Are you still seeking kind of security from this relationship?
No. I can honestly say, hand on heart, the first time in my whole life it was the one thing that I wasn't searching for. And I think it was a testament to the amount of self-work that I'd done on myself, because I was good either way, right? I knew at one point I wasn't going to choose to live my life on my own, but if I am on my own, I'm okay with that. You know, I was more than okay.
That's why I'm thinking that's why maybe one of the reasons this relationship works, right?
It was magic.
Yeah, because I think the best relationship is actually the growth of both sides, right? It's like, because our soul, the key mission is to expand, expansion. I think most of people, we may have the challenging relationship because we are not healed. Of course, we cannot completely heal, but we are seeking the security from the other person. So that's why it is hard for the relationship. But this is what when I listen to your story, I feel like when you are seeking more like growth,
alignment as well.
Alignment. I love the word. That's much better for really, I would say, mutually nourishing relationship.
I think this time around, I was very secure in who I was and who I was becoming, shall we say, because I wasn't her yet, but I knew I was on the journey of it, because I sure as hell make sure I become that version.
We did talk a lot about your fearless journey. I think you did, you show so much courage in how do you rewire, like hack your mind and doing your inner work, which is really touching. I think it's not an easy journey, all the inner work, like commitment. But now you're doing this business, Limitless Academy, right? So Limitless is our word too. Yeah. So I'm really curious. So what is your definition about being, like you said, a limitless CEO energy? Or what is really a limitless woman to you?
A limitless woman to me. A limitless woman to me is becoming more of who she is. And like I said before, just breaking every single glass ceiling, pushing herself to that very edge, and then just walking that little bit further. You know, it's about building the skills that you need to live a limitless life, right? And a lot of that includes things like discipline, you know, courage, having a very healthy relationship with risk. You know, I think taking risk, you know, if you want to have a big, audacious life and you want to, you know, have an incredible vision for your life, then you have to take risk. You can't sit in comfort. It's going to be uncomfortable. And I always say this, but it's about these 1% shifts. And I make sure that every single day I am doing something that feels uncomfortable, because making it uncomfortable becomes part of my norm. And that to me is how you keep moving forward.
You said a lot like glass ceiling, the limited belief in us, right? What do you think is the biggest? Of course, everyone might be different. We have different limited beliefs. From your experience, yourself and with your clients, what might be the biggest limited belief for women?
I think after working with over 150 women, especially with timeline therapy and really understanding their past, is sometimes it's not fear of failure, it's fear of success. And I think this is when they can confuse the fact that they don't feel good enough, and the self-doubt is because they don't feel good enough for the people that are in their life at this moment in time, right? And I think when we really start to work on shifting the doubt, because the self-doubt is only there because we decided it's there, right? A limiting belief is a limited decision that we have made at some point, and not on a conscious level, right? We could be 3 years old, and this is where it builds. So I think for women in general, a lot of it is self-doubt, not feeling good enough, fear of being seen, but also fear of success comes up more times than fear of failure ever does. Yeah. I think for me personally, if I was to say like what my limiting belief has been, like the biggest one throughout my whole life, is believing I wasn't intelligent. Because I believe there is only one form of intelligence, academic.
Okay.
And for me, I'm very emotionally intelligent. And hence why I've built the business around, you know, mindset, past trauma. You know, I'm trauma-informed mentor.
But about being fear of success, I think that's really a good one.
Yeah.
I do believe that too. I think most of the time we, like you said, we can see that version.
Yeah.
We want to go there, but subconsciously, we will lose something.
Of course.
So what exactly you think we are afraid of about the success bring us?
People don't like change, right? People don't like change. Change is inevitable. Personal growth is a choice. And I think what can happen is when you think of your vision, you know on an unconscious level that to get there, your current reality has to look very different. And that brings fear upon people.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I work with a lot of women that are outgrowing their partners. And they get scared of, you know, especially ambitious women. And when they're in a relationship with a man, for example, that isn't supportive of their dreams, or they're not talking the same language, or they're not on the same vibration and frequency, what can happen is they're scared of becoming more. They're scared of, you know, bringing more success into their life because they feel like it's changing them too much, right? And to a certain degree, it does. Business changes you. Business is the biggest self-development journey you will ever go on in your entire life, because it will literally highlight every single limiting belief you have about yourself, every story, because you have to be 1,000,001 things when you start, right? If you haven't got a team, especially, you have to do all of these things. And I think it's incredibly hard because women feel like they come to a crossroads where they either choose their career and their path of purpose, as I like to call it, or they settle.
They make themselves smaller.
Yeah.
Shrink.
For other people. Because the pain of losing what they've got feels greater than what they can achieve. Because the thing is, it's fear of the unknown, right? They don't know that, you know, on the other side of what they've got, okay, they're happy, right? And this is the thing, I don't always work with women that are really struggling, and some of them are like, Beck, I'm living a really great life, but I want iconic, right? And that is, for me, that's the edge. That's the difference of you really want to take your vision to the end. Like you really want to, you want to go places. And I think that's the biggest challenge that they have. And especially, not just in relationships, but people around them, right? Their friends will no longer resonate because people remember you of a version of yourself that you were 5 years ago. And because you're different now, it makes them feel funny, right? So I've got people in my friends, if you will, that they're not into the work that I'm into. They're not into spirituality. They don't really get the vibrational and frequency. So when I'm talking on my social media, and I know some of them are watching, they're thinking, what the hell is she on about? Right?
Yeah.
You become different, right? Because your beliefs change. Your vision gets bigger. And on an unconscious level, that makes other people feel a bit funny, right? The energy doesn't lie. And if it's too big, and I truly believe this is what happened in my past relationship, where I think I'd grown too quick, too fast. I was not the girl. I was so far removed from the girl that my ex met. And I'd just shot off and I'd gone this way. And I mean, call it stubbornness, but I continued on with it because for me, living an average life, what average means to me, right? Living an average life was scarier than basically losing what I had. So I was prepared. I was willing to do what it takes. And I think sometimes that is a really hard thing to do. It's a really hard decision to make because even though, I was so in love with my ex, of course, I'm not going to sit here and say I wasn't. I absolutely adored him. I did everything for him. But
I love that. What pain is worse, right? Like you said, if you're going to be the word iconic, but there's also another choice. You can stay in this kind of now easy, comfortable zone, which is ordinary, but that's more painful. Energy doesn't lie.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's beautiful.
I think people, and me included, I've definitely been there, but, they choose a familiar hell over an unfamiliar heaven.
So you use one of this timeline therapy.
Yeah.
So tell us more about your kind of framework, how
Yeah.
we can be more limitless.
For me, timeline therapy is one of the most powerful modalities that I have ever experienced, and I've had a hell of a lot of therapy. You know, I mean, my journey started really when I got divorced I was 29 years old at the time, and I had a mental breakdown. I literally had, they call it a nervous system breakdown, right? It literally hit me like a ton of bricks. And the thoughts that I were having about life were not healthy, let's just say. Being completely honest, I didn't want to be here anymore. Okay. And I think a lot of that was a lot of trauma that had happened in my life through childhood, through living with an alcoholic step parent, through being in toxic relationships, and the cycles and the patterns I was repeating. And although sometimes things, you know, wasn't our fault and we were in situations like that, it's our responsibility to change our life, right? We're responsible for our own results.
If a lady, your client walk into your office, like say, I do want to be iconic. I want to be limitless, living in my highest timeline.
Yeah.
So what exactly we can do to really live in our, if I may say, the highest timeline?
Yeah.
Someone like, if she said, I can see that, but how can I get there?
Yeah. You have to clear emotional residue, as I like to call it, from the past. So when you have different levels of trauma that are living in the body, these are obviously beliefs that we hold about ourselves that become part of our self-image. So if you want to be this iconic woman, you've got to literally surrender to the fact that 95% of who you are being right now is all stored in your unconscious mind. Right? People aren't aware of what happened when they were between the ages of 0 to 7. If you really want to go there, past lives, you know, generational trauma, there's a thing, right? There's a pattern there. And that's something that I had to do. I kept going for therapy, as in like talking therapy. And don't get me wrong, it has absolutely got its place. And I think it's a great place to start. But it wasn't helping. It wasn't getting rid of the emotion I was feeling. I kept going back to the same, because I kept talking about the same thing, and therefore we think in pictures. I kept talking about the event, the picture kept coming onto the screen of my mind, flooding my body with emotion, and I was in this circle, and I'm thinking, what? So that's when I discovered timeline therapy. And it's a therapeutic process where you access the unconscious mind, and the memory, like the unconscious mind always knows. You will start to receive memories that happened in the past, where we take positive learnings from those memories. So you are basically processing the trauma that you experienced in the past so you can have a better tomorrow. Because it's like when you go through life and you have a rucksack and you've got all of this rubbish, right, that you're putting in this rucksack. That rucksack gets extremely heavy. So if you want to live an iconic life, you've got to be willing to let go of the past. And we can't do that on a conscious level. We have to do it unconsciously.
When I did some research about the timeline therapy, you also mentioned it's good, like it literally can really release kind of your negative emotion from most of your experience in the past. That's amazing.
And it's instant. And this is the thing, like when I have clients, because I check for physiology. So if I've got a client, especially online, I always check their physiology. And you'll see certain things like, you know, they might be really flush, the colour might drain, and then like the shoulders will drop. And you see like their eyes will move in a certain way, even though their eyes are closed. Like you'll see certain detail. And that's when you know the trauma is being released from the body. So you're no longer having this energetic charge go into a past emotion. And this is the thing. So when people experience, I mean, we work with the big 5 with timeline therapy. So anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. And all of those major negative emotions have got subcategories, right? So for example, you might say, well, I'm not really an angry person, but do you ever experience feelings of frustration? Well, yeah, right. Well, it's connected to anger. So when you start to, it's called a gestalt. So when we start to release those negative emotions, it's like a pearl of beads. All of those beads are the emotions and they fall away. The memory is still there because it's a mental faculty and, you know, we need our memory, but it's the emotional charge. And that is why my clients always, they can think clearly, right? They have more clarity and they have more energetic expansion, if you will, right? Their energetic field feels clean. And I always say this, like you can't carry the past with you. You've got to energetically let it go. because it's going to sabotage the thing that you want, and you're going to get very frustrated with yourself.
Yeah.
And because in the unconscious mind, that's where all learning, change and behavior happens, right? That's why we have to work so closely with the unconscious and not the logical brain.
What kind of limited things like the event? Maybe give us an example, like your client.
Oh, there's sometimes, I mean,
yeah.
the beauty of timeline therapy is it's content free. Okay. And this is why, and I've actually worked with men. They've had timeline therapy with me because sometimes they don't want to talk about what happened in the past, you know? So it is very much content free. Now I will only, I guess, ask the client to talk if they want to, right? Sometimes they will talk me through the event that's happening in the mind if they feel comfortable to do so. But from my perspective, all I'm interested in is where are they on their timeline? And if I can see any physiology change, I will direct them and guide them to really allow the emotion to release. But when we've actually spoken about it afterwards, because a lot of them, I think when you create that level of safety, they want to tell you their experience, you know, and it's the smallest of things. And this is when it's about the little T trauma, not necessarily the big T trauma. It's like the small events of, you know, when I was a little girl and, you know, I was told, just be quiet, never gave me any attention, just be quiet. And then she's built this whole belief of, you know, fear of being seen and fear of using her voice because little girls should be seen and not heard, right? And it's these little moments that can happen massively. And, you know, I've had one client as well where, I mean, this is getting a little bit woo-woo here, but we actually went back to a past life. And again, it's a very, like, people have like, what does that even mean? But when you're into this work, you really start to understand, like, we're all energy, right? We're all energy. And it took her back to, she had a very anxious attachment as well. I tend to attract women who have got anxious because I know I've been through the journey of it. And she went back to a time where her partner was in the war and she was left at home with no phone. And it's crazy what can actually come up in the memory or the imagination. Now, some people might think, that's crazy, surely. But when you actually do the scientific research around it, there is proof there.
So that's why sometimes we feel so hard. We know we want to change, but still there are a lot of things holding us back.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah, so that's why.
Yeah, and it's something that I will continuously do. Like, I have my own timeline therapy because I know the power of this work. Because if I want to become the best version of myself and create the most beautiful life and really see life as one big piece of art, right? I have to get out of my own way. And I don't always know what is in my way because I can't see my blind spots, you know, and it's always that new level, new devil. And I think when you get to a certain level in business and you're attracting different levels of communication and connection and opportunities, and, you know, you're going to get more of these beliefs and you think, hang on a second, I thought I dealt with this, you know, when in fact it's like there is something still lingering. So for me, it's an evolution. You're never going to get to this point where it's like, right, I've done all the work on myself now, I'm complete, because life is a journey. And I think you need to learn more about the becoming and enjoy the becoming. That's one of my biggest lessons. Stop rushing. What are you rushing for? Why are you rushing to get to the end? What's the end? Because when it's the end, it's the end.
Yeah, it's all here.
Yeah,
now.
right now.
Yeah. And also you mentioned identity a lot, right? And you have this method like installation, like it's fabulous. You said it's all we created our identity, right? So how can we this year really truly create our new identity?
So I take my clients through, especially if I'm working with women in business, I take them through my Limitless framework, if you will. And I always start with values and vision. Right, values and vision drive every decision. So I think if you're clear on your values, on your core values, and you have clarity on your vision, it might not even, you know, sometimes people get confused and be like, oh, I don't know what I want. And just keep asking the question, because I'm telling you the answer will come, right? The opportunity, the answer, the situation, the circumstance, anything, it will come. Then I always obviously focus on mindset. And I always like to say like a millionaire mind. And I don't just mean having millions in the bank. I'm talking about what is a millionaire mind, right? To live a millionaire life for you. I'm
curious, what is that mind?
Yeah, so for me, a millionaire mind, it's clean, right? It's got capacity. It's clean, it's got capacity, and it's driven. That to me is a millionaire mind.
Capacity and driven.
Yeah, because I think you have to have clean energy to achieve the thing that you want to achieve and live the peaceful life. If that is your mission, I think everyone thinks we're moving towards the big success and the fancy cars and the houses. And I'm sure that's a byproduct of the work, of course. And I'm here for that life. But what we're really wanting, every single human being, is inner peace, because it's who we are at the core of our being.
Yeah.
And we
it's
forget
the grounded,
all
like
of that.
connected with our body.
Yeah. It took me a long time to really understand that, because I was always chasing something. I was always chasing something. And the more you chase, the more it runs away.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So I always go through this is where I do a lot of the timeline therapy, because I'm always a massive believer of you've got to clear what is happening inside the mind that you don't know about. On a conscious level, you've got to clear it, because when you start to clear it, you will have more capacity. And to live a limitless life, you need capacity. You need to be a well-regulated resource woman, right? And it's not about always being, having a regulated nervous system, because being completely honest, you're not always going to be regulated. You're not designed to be, right? You're meant to go into fight or flight, and it's part
That's
of
the human life, right?
Absolutely. But what our job is a high performer, as a female leader, is how fast you can bring yourself back to baseline, right? How quickly can you bring yourself back to that grounding moment so you can move and you're not leading with emotion, right? You're not reacting to circumstance, you're responding to life, Then I always move on to movement. So for me, it's not just about moving the body as such, it's about the habits that you build, right? So the CEO habits. And again, it all comes down to the mind and the body. Your body is your vehicle.
What are the CEO habits?
You want to know my CEO habits?
Like, when you are coaching or helping other women build.
Yeah.
What are the habits?
So I don't like to say you need to do this, because everybody is different, right? And what works for one is not going to work for another.
Of course.
I personally believe that you need to create habits on your spiritual health, your financial health, and your physical health. And I think if you can create habits for all three of those, for me personally, your life will tick over much smoothly than it probably is right now. It's developing the relationship, one with yourself, self-trust, discipline, all of these things, but it's picking things that work for you. Now, things that work for me, like I love moving my body, right? I'm massively into weight training. I love it. I love going out hiking. My partner just took me to France. We went to the Mont Blanc for Christmas, and in a beautiful chalet, and climbing mountains. But I think it's finding the things that you're going to keep sticking, like you stick at, because there's no point in someone saying this is a tick box, you need to do all of these things. You're in charge of your own destiny.
That's why we need to try.
Of course, right? You've got to try.
Because you are not there. You don't know what that kind of event or activity can bring you, the energy.
Because you only know a conditioned version of yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
So you'll say, oh no, it's not for me. Well, have you tried? Well, yeah, I did it a couple of days. Well, have you tried longer than a couple of days? I had a client and I gave her a personalised tapping. We did some EFT tapping. And she was like, it's just not for me, Beck. I was like, how long have you been going for? I've done it for 2 days. I was like, come back to me when you've done it for 14. Just come back to me. Anyway, she came back to me and she said, Beck, I absolutely love it. She said, she's basically registered to study EFT. She's now an EFT practitioner. And it's funny because you tell yourself you don't like something, you tell yourself you don't want to do something, and therefore that is what your result is going to be.
So you mentioned the EFT. So share more about that. It's just 5 minutes in the morning, you said.
I mean, you can
completely change your energy.
In my opinion, because I've experienced it, and so have all of my members inside Limitless. So I've got a Limitless Academy membership, like I've mentioned, and part of that membership is I've got what's called the Healing Haven. Okay, so this is when you really start to learn about nervous system regulation. You've got tap-ins I've created tap-ins for so many things. So self-doubt, procrastination, I call it Limitless CEO energy. We've got one in the morning. We do energy clearing tap-ins and things. And when you tap on the certain meridian points of the body, I'm not going to get too much into the science here, but when you tap on the meridian points, it acts as a part of the brain called the amygdala, which is our emotional brain. This is where we process emotion. So when you start tapping, it's when you start to release. And what I absolutely love about tapping is you're not bypassing how you're feeling. Okay, you embrace it.
Oh, I love the word, not bypassing the feeling.
Yeah,
right?
you're not bypassing it. You're not
Yeah.
trying to mask it with positive affirmations. You're actually acknowledging your emotion, because the thing is, you have to process it.
Yeah.
Because if you
yeah.
just mask it, it's like that rucksack again. You just keep putting things in there. It keeps building and building, and then you just go bang.
So when we process it, we can release it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, for me, a big word here, acceptance. Right? You have to accept that you are a human being that is going to feel these emotions on the whole spectrum, because it's the law of polarity.
Love it. One of my favorite is David Hawkins' The Map of Consciousness.
Right,
that?
okay.
Yeah. It's like he gave the score of every emotion, right?
Yeah.
And the lowest is shame, which is 20.
Oh, yeah.
And so we have different jealousy, different emotions. And the highest, I think, is enlightenment, 1,000.
Yeah.
But I think the most beautiful thing is, he said, it's really the meaning is we experience the whole spectrum. Like last minute you could be even enlightenment, but next minute you were really triggered by some event, some person, right? So, and it's natural. It's just our life. And
It is.
like you said, we need to sit with it, face it, experience it, process it, rather than suppressing it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think sometimes when we hear the word trigger, it can sometimes have quite a negative connotation, I think, sometimes attached to it, where the way I like to see it is triggers are just showing you where you're not internally free. And I'm all about becoming a ruler of your inner world. Because when you become a true ruler of your inner world, your reality, it feels like magic. And I'm sharing it again from my journey and experience of where I started to where I am today, and it's just a beautiful, challenging process that you do go on, but you can change your reality. Like, you absolutely can.
We always ask this question. So obviously we have a lot of work to do, but what is one step a woman can do? Like this year, we can be more fearless, or walking towards our fearless life.
Deciding. And I know that might not sound like an example of, because I'm not here to tell you what to do. I'm here to make you empowered so you know what to do. Okay, and I think there's a difference, isn't there, with coaching and mentoring. Like mentoring, you can guide people and share your way. For me, it's about really bringing out that self-trust for someone, because it's all about inner safety.
Yeah.
It always roots back to inner safety. It's once you've developed a level of inner safety where it doesn't matter what is happening on the external world, you trust yourself. And the only way you trust yourself is by moving forward and embracing whatever circumstance. Like, choose to change your perception of the world. Because when you change your perception, Wayne Dyer said it perfectly well. He said, when the things you start, what was it, something about when you start to look at things differently, things begin to change.
Yes.
Something
exactly.
or other. They're not exact words, but it is about perception. I think when you make a decision, and it's not just a throwaway comment of, yeah, I'm going to do it. It's like, I'm going to do it. And it's sitting with yourself.
I decided to do it.
Yeah.
And to be committed.
Yeah. Because what can happen is, if you make a decision and then you don't follow through, you're just repeating the pattern of, well, I don't trust myself. So if you truly want to change, it's like when people say, I mean, my partner does it, and he helps coach people with fitness. And we used to be a skier for Great Britain, so we used to do a lot of sports that he still does. And people say, oh, what is it I need to do to become a really good runner? Start running. Yeah, but what's the plan? And I think we're all waiting for the perfect strategy. What is the perfect strategy of becoming? I'm like, you're the strategy. Decide. Start to build the confidence today by doing the small thing where you do start to trust yourself. You start with something so small, and it can even be like, saying no to something that you actually don't want to do. Do you trust yourself enough to say no? Yeah, I do. And I'm said no, and that's it. This is who I am now. Saying I say in my head all the time, especially with my clients, is this is my new identity. Like, this is who I am now. Like, I have raised my bar. I've raised the standard. right? Own it. And even if you don't feel like it right now, have somebody in your corner that breathes that belief into you, you know, because you can't do this work alone. In my opinion, you can't. I won't be where I am today without the people I've got in my life.
It's amazing. I feel like at the end of the day, we do have this journey is with ourselves, right?
Yeah.
It's like the self-explore, self-discovery. But I think the one of the key reasons we're here is connection. So that's why you said we cannot do it alone. We need support from other people. I think one of the soul correction from Kabbalah is pride.
Yeah.
Like a lot of us, we want to control things. Like we think we can do it by ourselves. Especially, I think a lot of spiritual friends, we've been through this journey. Like you said, we have a lot of healing, a lot of therapy, but it's evolving. We still need like people on the way supporting us and working together to become that higher version of ourselves.
And I think, why would you want to do it alone? You know, and I think we're human beings, but we're based on connecting with other people, right? It's one of our instincts, if you will. Like, we're meant to be connected with other people. And I think that was a big mission of mine building Limitless Academy. I wanted to build a home for female founders or ambitious women that are on this journey together, that are understood. Because I think a lot of the time when you do start this personal development journey, and it depends how far you want to take it, right? That's your journey and it's your path. But sometimes it can feel very lonely because you're not, like, other people they don't understand where you're at, you know? And I think when you meet with like-minded people, and
I completely understand that.
Absolutely. And it's like the conversation, you know, that we had, and, you know, just going back to when you were talking about resilience and moving through life, I think resilience is important, absolutely. And I think you build resilience in the trenches, right? Yes. You build it when you're in. And the same with faith. You don't have faith when everything's going well. Your faith is built in the trenches. And I think it's about having an anti-fragile mindset, you know, so you can't control circumstances. The only thing you can control is what's in here, in the mind.
So let's move to the ageless part. So it's actually fascinating. We get a lot of feedback from audience, like they do love the word ageless. So I'm curious, what is ageless to you?
Ageless to me, do you know the word that literally came to mind was wisdom? In the sense of, you know, people have this connotation around aging, if you will, right? And I know that's the opposite of what you're obviously portraying here, but we have this block, and it's like, oh, it's too late. It's too late. I'm too old. What does that even mean? You know, my answer to that, or even my question to that, would be, when did you decide that? Because you can have anything you want at any time. Of course, you might have certain situations and circumstances and limitations, of course, but it's looking around you to see what is available. You know, and I think, I mean, I'm 39 now. I'm the big 40 next year. And I know, you know, I'm still young. My partner's parents are the most incredible people I have ever met, who have built businesses from the ground up. His dad is 78. His mum is 71. And they are still building their businesses.
Wow.
And it's, you know, we went to France with them at Christmas, and they were hiking up these mountains and they were walking everywhere. They were fitter than me.
It's a number you put in your mind.
Absolutely.
Right?
And he's, you know, Adam's dad, a very Scottish guy, incredible, beautiful soul he is. And I always remember him saying to his wife, he said, "We are not old." He said, "It's a state of mind." And I thought, it's true. It's true. It's a true state of mind. Like, of course, our human physical body has a timeline, right?
Yeah.
And that's why I'm all about looking after it in the best possible way, like fueling your body, fueling your mind. You want your mind to be sharp, right? So it's like, what are you doing today for a better tomorrow?
That's what we say, like when you're stuck in an ordinary life, you would naturally get a kind of aging process, right? But we keep evolving, grow. Even like at 78, like my friend, he's 82, but he still want to evolve, grow. So it's really just a number.
It is. And it's when you actually think about it, months, days, They're all made up.
They're all crazy. That's what I was
like,
like, why is 12 months, like 7 days?
and I
It's
know
all
we have
in
to
the
live
human
by,
system.
yeah, of course, but it's made up,
Yeah.
and it's made up. And I think when you truly start to go on the soul, like choose the soul path, if you will, and the spiritual side of things, and I know my spirituality is, you know, enhanced even more so going through really difficult times, and I'm grateful. My goodness, I'm so grateful for every single pain and suffering that I went through, because there is no way I would be sat in this chair having this beautiful conversation with you today. There's just no way. And I think you've got to
understand.
You've got to
I
look
feel
back and have
exactly
gratitude.
the same.
Yeah. And I just think you've got to, like, you decide, right? So it's like, oh, I'm too old. My question. So when did you decide that? Because you've decided you're too old. Nobody's told you you're too old, or they may have done, but you don't listen to them, right? You just literally say, on your way, I'm not listening to that. But it's decisions that we make, and this is when I'm talking about glass ceilings. We create these invisible glass ceilings. Smash through them. You know, just take that little bit of faith and courage and choose to rewrite a new story.
Actually, we do have the right to choose. Like a lot of women, they create their business in 50s, even 60s. So it's really the decision.
Yeah, we have free will
Yeah.
at the end of the day. And I think, you know, like I said, with age comes wisdom. So how can you be too old when you've got a mind full of wisdom?
Yeah.
You know, it's the way you look at it. It's perception. I mean, you know, I look back and think, God, if I would have started my business at 20, can you imagine where I'd be now? But I didn't have the wisdom. I didn't have the consciousness. I didn't have the experience. You know, I didn't know how to become her.
Yeah.
Until it was the right time on my timeline, and I decided.
And now I feel like we have the sort of a toolkit, right? Based on all the years, all the experience, you get much clearer picture, like, and also the consciousness you can see from a, I would say, different perspective, rather than entangled with your emotions, with your traumatic experience, history, that kind of thing, right? Yeah.
And that's when I'm always about having clean energy.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, clean is very
clean,
important.
Clear,
and
connected.
Protecting your own energy.
Of course. Gosh, energy is your most valuable asset.
Luxury. I always say it's the most luxury product.
It is. You've got to absolutely. I nurture my energy like a queen looks after her crown jewels. Like, in all honesty, I do. It's your biggest asset. And, you know, we waste so much energy on the wrong things. And a lot of that is internal thinking, right? The internal conflict.
And to circle back to Ageless, I think when your energy is, when you're in your aligned energy, it's really like you never feel your body is aging and so healthy. It's all related to our energy, right?
Everything is energy. We're made up of energy, right? Yeah. And that's when I'm always about, you know, look after your body the way it looks after you, because you'll live a happier, healthier life that way, for sure.
That's true.
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's really beautiful. So we're getting to the ending part. So I always ask, if you can go back to the 20 years old and give her 3 pieces of advice, what advice you will give her?
Wow. 1 piece of advice to 3 pieces.
3.
I would say, don't be afraid to dream. That would be one of them. My second piece of advice would be, there are 7 different levels of intelligence, and you have the most special one, which is emotional intelligence.
Wow.
But I didn't know that back then. And I just told myself I wasn't clever enough. And
what are the 7? I'm curious.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. I just know I remember studying this. That's this 7 different levels. So you've got I'll have to get, Joe, I'll send you the article that I actually read on this.
Is that a human intelligence you're talking about?
It might be.
I know, Howard Gardner, that's one of my favorite series, 8 human intelligence.
It's fascinating when you actually understand, because we're all different, right? We're all different. And like, I know I'm not academically intelligent in the sense of I haven't studied a degree because at the time of being 20 years old, I didn't know what I wanted to do, you know, and that was my timeline and my journey that I had to go on. If I was to do a degree in the subject I'm in now, oh my God, I'd be...
I love that too, you know. It's really like everyone has our own big magic, the genius talent. Yeah. So what's the third?
My third one.
Advice.
My third one would be, you don't know how good your life is going to get. Because I think when you've got a mindset that is so poor, let's just say, my mind was so poor back then, a future version of me, giving her that information, would have fueled her with so much belief within herself at such a young age that she would have been able to create what she's created now, but sooner. Yeah.
It's kind of related to the first one. Like, we have the right, we need to dream big.
Yeah.
And actually, the life could be even more beautiful and bigger than your dream.
100%. And I think, you know, sometimes we could have the dream and the vision, and this is where I'm all about letting go and surrender. Because in my mind, this or something better. I've got a vision, but the thing is, I'm only dreaming at the level I'm dreaming at now with the consciousness that I have now. So if I truly trust in God's source, spirit, universe, whatever that might be, as long as I'm doing my bit and I'm becoming the best version of myself, even if I don't hit that big milestone that I've set on myself. And what did they say? If you shoot for the moon, the worst case is you land amongst the stars. Yeah. You know, your life is going to naturally, and this is a thing, I always talk about type C goals in my coaching practice, but always set yourself a type C goal, something that you have never, ever achieved in your whole entire life. Because since like I started dreaming bigger, the people, the opportunities, the money, everything that I've attracted, my God. And that's why I'm like, don't let it scare you, because it's not going to happen overnight. You don't have to speak on the stage in front of 10,000 people tomorrow. You know, if that is one of your goals, it's not going to happen overnight. But dreaming
when you're ready,
oh my God,
just like
exactly, and
the opportunity, the right one will. It's
it's
the divine timing.
Exactly that, and you have to. And this is the biggest lesson I've had to learn is patience, right? And people say to me now, God, you're just so calm, and I'm like, well, I never used to be. I was living in doubt and worry and constantly working. I hit burnout 1,000,001 times. And now I live such a peaceful life in the Cotswolds with my partner. And we've got a very simple yet expansive life together. You know, deep conversations, walks, venturing out, traveling. My inner circle is so small, intentionally, right? And I'm going to keep it that way because, again, it's an energetic thing for me. You know, the more I can fuel my own energy, and I'm all about the more I have, the more I can give. So it's like, how can I become that version of me so I can give back to the, you know, collective consciousness, if you will.
And this question is more for my guest, actually. I find it's what is your vision for the 10-year, like a decade later, if you can see yourself? What are the 3 things you want to achieve? I think a lot of guys told me, oh, that's good.
It is. And you know, when I said, like, I don't actually share my big vision publicly anymore. And so I will give you a little insight, direction. I guess. Yeah. In all honesty, I want to be doing more of what I'm currently doing. My vision is big, you know, in terms of the brand and making it, you know, taking it global and just helping as many, because it's a ripple effect. And it's not just the women that I'm helping, it's the families, it's the husbands, it's the children. It's a ripple effect through humanity, you know. So if I can help change just one mind, the ripple effect on that could change 1,000 minds, in my opinion. And I just want to be doing more of what I'm doing. I want more connection. I want more, you know, quality conversation. I want to be able to travel all around the world and meet different people and touch the souls of other people, and just, even if it is breathing belief into them that they can do whatever they want to do. It's just more of what I'm doing. Of course, I'd love the the big expansive holidays and the traveling and the speaking gigs, and all of that is going to come, right? All of that's just a byproduct of the work I'm doing now. But for me, it's more about the intentionality of how can I clean up the world? What bit can I do to help clean up the world? You know, to just leave it in a better place than when I found it when I got here.
That's very beautiful. And I feel like we do share the very similar mission.
We do.
Yeah, we do. And I can ask you if that man in the first class of the flight, he's here. He's still he's saying to you, right? You should find the answer. Do you think you found the answer?
I think I found the way.
So what is that?
I think a lot of it is getting out of your own way.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've always said, you can't see yourself in the picture when you're in the frame. I think when you change your perception, for one, you let go of your past and you are no longer a victim to your circumstances, and you have clarity and you can see, right? Not see through the eyes of who you are today, but you see through the eyes of who you're becoming. The world is such a different place. It's more colourful, it's brighter, it's just beautiful. And I don't ever believe there is one way of doing something. And I say this with my community, like, I will never be the person that says this is the way to get you here. There is a million ways you can fly to Australia with different airlines, right? But my way is a way. And if anything that I ever say that relates, that you resonate with, that you think, I want to feel that, I want to feel like that, or I want to be doing that, then I will like gladly show you my way. And every path is unique to the individual, you know? And I class myself, I mean, I do human design. I don't know if you know much about human design, but I'm a 5/1 projector in human design for those that are listening and do understand it. And I am a life teacher. It's at my core.
We did have one episode. I interviewed. We had this wonderful conversation with Natty. She is a human design expert.
I'll have to check it out.
You can check that. Yeah.
Fascinated. Again, that's all based on energetics and everything that fascinated me. But I just go through life and I learn as much as I possibly can learn, not just about myself, but about other people. I study the mind. I study success. I study the blocks that they have. Like, I study all of it, and I can be that beacon of light, you know, to show you a way where you don't have to suffer and you don't have to struggle.
Wow, that's really, really beautiful. So I have my last question. We have this ending question is about our brand, Penthouse. So we want to redefine a penthouse life, because penthouse is more traditionally, it's like a symbol of the wealth, like a material, right? Material world.
Yeah.
But I think when we, back to the very beginning, you mentioned the word peace. When we have a peaceful mind, a mind of our own free will, the courage, our truth, our true joy, right? Our mind is our penthouse. That's kind of the concept of the penthouse life.
Yeah, I love
that. So every guest will leave one penthouse rule. In this penthouse community, what is your rule?
Oh, my rule.
You can share with our community, like.
I guess my rule would be, if you believe that you are shining bright, shine even brighter. I guess that's what mine would be.
I think it's beautifully captured almost everything you shared. It's like, if you believe in that dream, you have the certainty. We're delusional. We steadily hold our vision in our mind, and miracle happens.
Yeah.
Like, it could be even bigger, better, more beautiful than we dreamed, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's wonderful. Thank you so much, Beck. I think it's truly, truly amazing talk. And I'm pretty sure we have a lot of insights, wisdom we had covered in this conversation.
No, it's
Thank
been an
you so
honor.
much.
You're so welcome. Thank you for
Thank
having
you.
me.
Give you.
Oh,
I can't even have 2 hours already.
thank you so much.
Rebecca's story is a powerful reminder of what is truly possible, that we really can change our life in just 18 months or even less, and become a new version of ourselves with more love, more joy, and abundance. So my question for you is this: are you ready to create your own penthouse life this year? Tell us your thoughts in the comments, and I will see you in our next penthouse conversation.